Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. We're looking today at management strategies for managing MS fatigue. I'm Andrea Salmon and I'll be the facilitator for today's webinar, and Alexandra Lys is our presenter. Alexandra might pop on her camera now. We start all our programs by acknowledging and paying respect to the traditional custodians, past, present and emerging, on whose lands we meet wherever we are today. And we acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and the relationship of Aboriginal people to country. We also respect the cultural authority of the elders in each community. It is my pleasure to have Alexandra online with us today. Alexandra is one of our OTs who works in the NDIS team. She actually graduated from Curtin University in Perth in 2014. And Alexandra has worked in regional Western Australia, Perth, London and Melbourne, in the area of neurorehabilitation in both hospital and community-based settings. Alexandra joined us a year or so ago, Alexandra, and recently moved from Melbourne to Sydney. So she has a particular interest in assistive technology and home mods, and like all our OTs, well-versed in helping people manage fatigue.
All right, welcome everybody. Apologies for my technical difficulties. This is the MS Fatigue Management Strategies webinar. So today, the outline that we're going to cover is we're going to talk about fatigue and what it is for people with MS, what types of fatigue that people might experience and some of the symptoms, and talk about how you guys can take charge and be in the driver's seat for making changes, positive changes towards managing your fatigue, and looking at some fatigue management contributing factors and strategies and where to go for follow-up if you are feeling that you need to have some assistance with this. So there's lots and lots of different symptoms of MS. You know, you may experience some of these or all of these, but not necessarily everyone experiences them to the same degree. Okay, so I'm sure you guys all know that there's no cure for MS, but there's much that can be done to manage the symptoms to enable good well-being and your experience with MS. So fatigue is probably one of the most common symptoms, and I often describe it as one of those, the hidden symptoms or the blind symptoms. People can't see it, but it is one of the most, some of the worst symptoms that people experience. So 80% of people who are diagnosed with MS state that this is one of their symptoms, and 55% of those people actually describe it as one of their worst symptoms. So what is fatigue? You know, often it's described as, it's obviously subjective, it's what you internally feel, but it's different from general tiredness. It's an overwhelming sense of tiredness that's not made better with rest or sleep. Okay, so we live in like quite a fast-paced world where everyone's sort of expected to be tired at some points. Like even myself, being an able-bodied person, I get tired towards 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the general work of the day, and then I start to have a bit of a peak, and then I get tired again towards the evening. But that's different for people with MS. It's general fatigue, and fatigue with MS is not usually passed with sleep or rest. So we've got, so if you're looking at the two different types, we've got the everyday fatigue, which I've just described with myself, and then you've got the MS fatigue. Okay, so but we still have to remember that there's contributing experience. Even though you have MS, you might also be experiencing that everyday fatigue as well. So today we'll probably be looking at more trying to optimize these symptoms as well, and that experience. So when we have fatigue, that's a direct result of MS, and it's theorized that this result of processes characterized by MS itself is the demyelination and the axonal loss in the CNS or the immune actions. So it's because of a change in your brain that we're not able to accommodate for. So the second one,
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
I was just going to ask, will we run the poll yet? But I'm sorry, I thought you were ready to move on.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just explaining just this next one. I guess you guys can do it while we're running. So what is the experience of what is your experience of fatigue? And we'll just get Andrea to pop the poll up. Beautiful, and I can just talk while we're doing it. So you've got the 5 options. So you've got overwhelming sense of tiredness, you've got overwhelming tiredness that comes on in the afternoon, you've got inability to do some physical activities, or you've got inability to do some thinking and social activities. So if you guys could all enter in your results, that would be really good. It'd be really interesting to see what your feedback is. We can see what the group is like. So the lassitude, the 2 different types of lassitude. So that's the abnormal, consistent and persistent state of tiredness. And that's when we've often heard people with MS describe it as like hitting a wall. There's just nothing else you can do. It's more a bit like a really, really bad extended hangover, or if you've ever had jet lag, it's sort of similar to that. That's what some of my participants have said to me. And then you've got your neuromuscular fatigue. So it's increased weakness and exercise and repetition. So that's after physical exercise, you might experience muscle weakness, slurred speech, inability to perform daily tasks. And then you've got your cognitive fatigue, which is reduced reaction time and responsiveness, alertness during the days, and difficulty thinking, concentrating, memory, and often word finding difficulties. Okay, and there's also some theories to suggest, and most people have experienced this, is that fatigue may be affected by normal diurnal body temperature variations. So often that's a dual symptom with MS, is that you have got an irregularity with being able to control your thermoregulation. So as the body peaks with temperature peaks around mid-afternoon, this is often when people report experiencing this type of fatigue the most. All right, beautiful. So what were the results of the poll?
Yeah, well, nearly everyone's voted. If anyone wants to throw in a vote, not everyone has voted on that poll yet, but I'll close that off and I'll show you the responses.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a variation now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say 30% find that it's an overwhelming tiredness all the time. Sometimes some people are noticing that it's different in the afternoons. It's that lassitude, but it comes on in the afternoon. And then we've got people who are experiencing the physical side of fatigue, and some people who are experiencing the cognitive side. And then we've got a couple of people who are not sure that they experience MS fatigue. So that's great that you've joined us today too, because you'll learn about it. It's an interesting phenomenon. Whenever I've done fatigue programs, and I should say my background is occupational therapy like Alexandra's, people often find their fatigue worsens as they start thinking about it, because they start noticing it more. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that is an interesting fact. So I suppose we're looking at what some of those experiences might be being further impacted by. So we consider that the contributing factors. There are some contributing factors such as sleep and rest, depression and stress, diet and lifestyle, fitness and strength, heat, and medications. So if we're looking at some of those contributions in a bit more more closely. So are you sleeping poorly? Because we want to try and optimize your fatigue, like we mentioned before. So are you sleeping poorly? Might this be contributing to your fatigue? You might need to address the reasons that you're not sleeping well. Are you getting enough rest? Are you taking enough breaks throughout the day? Do you feel consistently low or flat? Because depression and anxiety and stress can often lead to it will promote more fatigue. So looking at subsidised visits to a psychologist, which are available through your mental health care plan and also available through your GP. I've also been told that with the new price guidelines that that psychology is going to be included in the NDIS plan. So if that's something that you want to discuss with your planner, with your OT, with your other allied health professionals, that's something that you should be engaging as well with your NDIS plans. Now you're eating a healthy and balanced diet. Do you need dietary advice? you could see a dietitian as one of the 5 free allied health appointments annually when you visit your GP. Can sometimes lead to chronic disease as well. So it's important that you're managing your diet and lifestyle as adequately as possible. And are you doing some regular aerobic exercise? Do you need to start moving more? Do you need some advice from a physio on how you can move safely and still get that aerobic exercise? And how do you keep cool? Heat typically worsens fatigue. So are you sort of avoiding other things because you don't want to get that increase in heat? Try and avoid heat by using air conditioners and cooling gel vests. Maybe speak to your OT about potentially getting that in your next plan or within this plan. Or if you're not on the NDIS, there's always you can always call MS Connect and get some advice through there as well. So are you taking medications that add to your fatigue? Sometimes there's other medications that you're taking for sleep or even just your MS related medications. Have a chat to your pharmacist or your doctor. Medications can both be a contributing factor, but also may offer some assistance with your symptoms of fatigue. Speak to your specialist about this though, because everybody is different and it's going to affect people differently. Okay. I think there should be another poll coming up.
Beg your pardon, sorry, I'm flicking around. I had to turn off my screen and on again.
Apologies. So can you identify a contributing factor that you could address or change? So could you explore? Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, someone made a comment from the last poll that sometimes a couple of things apply, and we are a little bit restricted with how we set up the polls, and we're also restricted with the number of possible answers. So it's a best, choose your best answer, I guess, and it's just part 2 of knowing that you're not alone in your experience of fatigue. And in this particular case, it's getting you to think about, are there, maybe from the information that Alexandra presented in the last slide, maybe that has already started you thinking of things that you should be exploring around some of those contributing factors, so that it's almost removing some layers of your fatigue experience so that you know a bit more about what you're dealing with, what you're able to manage. So getting some of the contributing factors under control first, maybe, and then looking at some of the fatigue management strategies as well. So Feel free to hover your mouse over and vote on that, and then I'll share the results and you'll be quite interested in what's coming out. One more, anyone else? Couple more people? Nearly there. That's great. All right, I'll close that and I'll share the results with you.
Great. So that's really good, because I suppose that first one, the 46%, like, yes, I could explore more about improving my sleep. It's really good to see, because I guess that's why you guys have all joined the webinar today. It's that you're willing to make some changes, and you're wanting to make some positive impact and change in your life. So thank you for sharing that. That's really exciting.
It's great. It's always great to have something that you've jotted down that you're going to go away and do after one of these programs. Thank you.
Beautiful. And I suppose that kind of leads us to our next slide, talking about, how are you self-managing your MS from the driver's seat? The driver's seat's like an analogy that we help to explain that you, the person with MS, needs to be in control of managing it. So choose where you're going, how you get there, make the decisions, the tracks along the way. Other people in the car can help you with directions and make suggestions that may help you to reach your destination. Family, friends, medical and health professionals in your support network will help you to understand and manage the impact of your MS symptoms in your day-to-day life. But how can you make active, informed decisions and take the lead? Hopefully by having, by coming to this webinar and getting a bit more information, you might be able to identify, even within as we're going through, you can identify some of the contributing factors as they're coming about now, and writing down, you know, this is how I can help myself, or maybe you'll find out later within this webinar on how you can explain fatigue to other people so that other people can have a better understanding of how your fatigue is affecting you. So make active decisions about how you use your energy and which activities in your day are the most important to you. Active decisions are those that are unlikely or cannot be achieved. And then you guide supporters on what you feel you can achieve and seek their support for those who can, when you can't do them. But that means that you're still remaining in the driver's seat, and it's your choice that you're getting another person to help you, rather than, you know, waiting until there's nothing left and then watching as somebody else takes over. So what we're talking about now is really about making some changes, okay? What we have found in our work is that managing fatigue is often dependent on making some changes in our routines, our priorities, our expectations, and our activities, but in a positive way to enable us to do more and not less. And we need to recognise to make small changes. And the strategies we'll talk about don't really require big changes. Small changes can make just as much of a difference. Okay, so here are some of the following strategies to assist you with managing your fatigue. So when you only have a certain amount of energy each day, planning and prioritization become critical in working out where you'd prefer to spend your energy. And this can sometimes be called budgeting energy. And I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the spoon theory, but I'd highly recommend if you go and have a look at www.butyoudon'tlooksick.com and have a read of Christine Miserandino's story. She's a lady with who has lupus, but were in a similar sense of MS. She talks about how fatigue is one of her most limiting factors, and being able to explain that to one of her good friends when she was out was just quite opening in being able to give that person an understanding of how she felt every day. And the spoons sort of represent how much energy that person has each day. So say, you know, like ourselves, we only have, as an able-bodied person, I've probably got endless spoons, whereas somebody with MS may only have 12 spoons for the whole day. And just between when they first get up and have a shower, they've probably already used 6 spoons, and they've only got 6 spoons left to spend with the rest of the day. So how are you going to spend those spoons? And this is what it breaks down to, is which are the ones that are critical that have to be done, which are the ones that are important and should be done, and which are the ones that are trivial, so if I get time, and which are the ones that I can just delegate or discard. Do I need someone else to do it for me? Can I get someone else to do it for me? Or do I need to even do it at all? All right, so involve the family in prioritizing your tasks as well. It's in the people around you. So think about your children. It's really good for kids to learn skills within the home. You need to you also need to I guess the biggest thing with change is kind of coming up with new expectations for yourself as well. Are you going to be okay with having an altered standard if other people are doing other tasks, even though it might not be done the same way as you? Having family discussions would probably be required to clarify tasks and timing, and some changes require cooperation with other members. So changes include, like, you can also look at changing how you do tasks, especially if you've had any input from an OT. They'll probably be able to give you some information on kitchen trolleys for laundry, using a kitchen perching stool so that you're doing alternating seating, and all those sorts of things within your daily tasks that are going to minimize the amount of energy that you need to do that task.
Alexandra, someone's asked if you could say the website again for the
Oh,
spoon
yeah,
theory.
of course. Yeah, so it's called butyoudon'tlooksick.com. www butyoudontlook.sick.com. The spoon theory. You can Google that and I'm sure it will take you to that page as well.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. I haven't put that one in the slides.
No worries.
So planning your activities. Let's have a look. Let's be responsible. Being responsible for your own energy conservation and fatigue management plan means that you're sort of looking ahead, you're planning ahead. Use a diary or your phone, iPhone or iPad that has inclusive of your calendar, and include all the appointments and works and rest breaks and jobs. If you know that you've got something big coming up towards the end of the week, make sure that you've got some break days on either side. I know some people like to, if they're working part-time, rather than having all their days in a row, they usually like to have a rest day in between, and try not to do too many activities on those rest days, as much as they'd probably like to clean the house and get everything sorted and go out with their family for a nice break. It might be more important for them for that week to focus on their work. So they're making sure that on that rest day that they're actually resting. And making sure that you're balancing your activities, so completing essential activities when you're least fatigued, and alternating between demanding tasks and less demanding tasks, so that and even between cognitive tasks and then physical tasks as well. So you're trying to get that, you're not trying to put too much pressure on initially. I know that's a lot of people find that they just want to get it done. They just want to get finished and then they can rest after. But it's sort of counterintuitive as to what you should be doing with fatigue management, because if you completely use up everything in the tank, it's a lot harder to refill the tank if it's completely empty. It's almost like it goes into a bit of a sleep mode before you can just pop more fuel in. So it's important that you try and spread out your tasks and break them down into more manageable stages. So if, for example, if you're vacuuming like one day, only doing one room at a time rather than doing the whole thing at once, and pacing yourself before becoming too exhausted and taking time out during activities will often improve your endurance and often improve the quality of how you're doing things as well. Okay, and then talking about positioning, and I think I sort of touched on it before. When you're looking at each particular thing that you do, it might be getting out of bed in the morning. Is that difficult for you? Is there a way that you can do it a little bit easier? Do you need someone to help you? Do you maybe looking at getting an OT in to see if maybe you might need a bed stick, or they might be able to train you in how to use a leg lifter? Some people who find that they have the weakness in their legs, often it creates, you're needing a lot more energy to do everyday things. So looking at from start to finish in your day, how could you simplify it so that you're using less energy? And I mentioned before about the kitchen stool, but you could also look at, a multifunctional cooker. You could look at, maybe getting somebody else to come and do like the meal prep, so that somebody else is doing all the chopping up of the vegetables and you sort of just do the assembly at the end of the day. Okay, and then looking at sleep. So sleep is probably one of the most important things that I usually go through with my participants, just because, like, although no two people need the same amount of sleep, what's the most important is getting a restful and undisturbed sleep, including the deep sleep as well as REM. So with the deep sleep, to get there, it's 3 different cycles. So if you're constantly getting up to go to the toilet, or you're waking up because of your spasms, or you're waking up because of the pain, that's interfering with your good night's rest. So we need to have a look at that in a bit more detail, with your GP, with your neurologist, and also looking at the incidence of because we do know that the incidence of sleep disorders have actually been shown to be higher in the MS population than the general population, and that people with MS might also find the following impact their sleep, such as, you know, going to the toilet, the pain, some anxiety relating to the adjustment to disability, and, you know, low mood and other external factors, and just those thoughts that sort of keep us awake. And even though we know that some aspect of that is MS related and it's a central component to your condition, we could always optimize the other sort of secondary symptoms that are sort of being caused by that. So the anxiety and the low mood, and we can try and minimize your pain through other techniques. So one of the handouts, which I think would have been emailed to you as well, is around sleeping well. And it's also an entire program that we also do similar to this webinar. So if you're interested in signing up for that, I'm not sure when the next one is, but we'll find out at the end. Andrea will give us a bit more information about that. But it does talk about developing regular sleep routines, like going to bed and getting up at the same time, and using the bedroom for the 2 S's only, sleep and sex, rather than you know, having the TV, looking at your, scrolling through your computer, you know, looking through your phone, trying to get, looking at your circadian rhythms. You don't want to have those blue lights just before you go to bed, which is the blue screens, the blue lights that you get from screen time. They actually are sort of disturbing the circadian rhythms, because it's telling you that it's awake time rather than downtime. So we want to try and set the routine so that you've got at least half an hour to an hour where you're not having any of that screen time before you go to bed. Try and maintain a comfortable temperature. A lot of people get really hot at night times, and look at making sure that you're wearing breathable clothing, that you've got breathable sheets, that you've got the air conditioner if you need it, or even the cooling pads that can be popped on your bed as well. If you don't know about that, feel free to speak to your OT. And I guess the one thing to note is that you're not going to fix poor sleep in one night. In the same way, we're not going to fix fatigue in one day either. It's going to take perseverance and good habits to try and get there. So don't feel like you haven't achieved something straight away. It will take time. And I think I heard somebody say the other day, it's like, if it was easy, then everybody could do it. So I suppose, you know, that's the one thing to try not to be too hard on yourself, and try and persevere if you can. So if you can't sleep, try not to stay in bed awake, and then, because then that sort of starts with the self-talk again. Oh, I can't sleep, I'll never be able to get to sleep. And then all of a sudden the anxiety around not going to sleep is probably what's making you stay awake. So try and do something else. Try and close your mind with some meditation. Be present in that, you know, touch base with how you're feeling, and try and relax your body through other ways, whether that's progressive muscle relaxation, with caution, of course, but also, you know, some cooling down activities, or even, like, if you wanted to read something really boring, like a dictionary. Nothing that's going to get you too excited, that's going to keep you awake and reading up through the night. And if your bladder is making you get up numerous times each night, maybe look at going and getting an assessment from a continence nurse. It might have been a bit of you know, a few months, or, you know, over a year since you last had your review, so you might need to go and revisit that. I also think it's important that if you feel like it's weakness, then maybe going and seeing a women's health physio as well, to see if you can strengthen your pelvic floors, as there might be multiple things going on with your bladder and the incontinence relating to that, and the frequency. So I guess the next one is, what is a rest? So rests are pretty key to managing MS fatigue, and often people find them really really difficult to incorporate if you've got a really busy lifestyle. So I wondered, if we could do the poll, does anybody currently rest?
So here's
Wow.
sorry, here's the poll about rest. I'll give Alexandra a chance to have a sip of water.
Thank you.
Your options here are no, there's absolutely no time for resting, or no, if I rest, people will think I'm lazy. Maybe no, I haven't even considered it. Yes, I rest for 3 hours every afternoon, or yes, I regularly stop for a cuppa and do a crossword. So choose an answer there that applies to you, or you know, is the closest to you, and we'll give you we'll have a look at the responses and maybe make some commentary as well. And I've got to say, great comments coming through into the question and chat area. Or in the question area, when we don't use the chat, sorry. And I already have to admit that we won't get to them all, but we will follow them all up with you afterwards. While you're still voting on that, I'll comment on the sleep webinar. We have a whole webinar library on our website. So on the ms.org.au website, you can type into the search bar webinar library, and you'll be overwhelmed because there are a lot of webinars there. There are also now podcasts, so you can check out the podcasts and listen to those as well. But there's some great advice and hints on sleep, so check that out too. That's great. So nearly everyone's voted. I'll close that off. Anyone else want to vote on that just quickly before I close it off? I'll close that and I'll share the results. So 24% of people have said, no way, there's no time for resting. 9% have said, no, if I rest, people will think I'm lazy. And that's quite a valid feeling. It's not necessarily true, but it's a valid feeling. Some people have said, no, they hadn't even considered it. So good on you. We want you to now consider it. A few people have said they rest for 3 hours every afternoon. And I guess my comment on that, and Alexandra might comment to this as well, is that 3 hours is fine to rest if you can do that. And if that doesn't interfere with what else you want to do in the day. But if that means you're not getting things done that you want to get done, a 3 hour rest might not be the best option. And we'll look at making those rests shorter and more frequently. And then there's the 42% that say, yes, I regularly stop for a cuppa and do a crossword. And that is fabulous. But again,
it's really encouraging, yeah.
It is. But I'm also going to add the little piece around that's a good change in what you're doing, but it's not always necessarily the best form of a rest break, because you've still got your mind active, and a rest break might be better if it's completely resting, physically and mentally resting. But good on you guys. There's a real understanding of rest breaks and the importance, and we'll get Alexandra to explain a bit more about rest breaks.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. And it was really good to see everyone's responses. Thanks for being so interactive with us. I know it's a bit more difficult with the webinars. So I suppose reiterating what Andrea's just said as well, like many short rest breaks have been shown to have a greater recuperative value than a few long breaks. So I think one part of the reason why people choose not to rest is because they're feeling a bit of guilt around not being able to get everything done, or they feel like they're lazy, or they feel like what people think of them is not going to be great. But I suppose it's about letting go of that and accepting that resting is okay, and it's actually probably going to make you a lot more active and have quality time, and the activities that you do are going to have been higher quality as well if you're able to do those things little and often. So deciding on when the best times to rest is quite important, but may also take some experimentation. Like we said before, it's generally like within a day, you have generally people feeling a little bit tired when they first wake up, and then the best part of their day is in those initial hours after they wake up. And then that starts to go down again, and then they might have another peak if they've been able to rest, and then that goes down again. But based on those might work for some people and might not work for others. Some people are night owls, and some people like to get up early in the morning. It's whatever works for you, basically. It's very individualized. So choosing the right place to rest is quite important. So thinking of, if you're working, there might not be a place where you can sort of rest. I know now that we've got people that are working from home, might not necessarily mean that there's somewhere that you can rest easily, because you've got so many other people in your house at the moment. It might be that if you're working in the office, that you go and have that rest in your car, because that's where no one else is at work is going to see you, and it's also where you can just have your downtime. How long that goes for is, again, something that you need to experiment with. Is 5 minutes every hour the way that you'd like to do it? Is it 30 minutes twice a day? Have a play with it and see how it goes. Often, if you have like a fatigue management diary, an fatigue activity diary, and you just do your normal week, and then write everything down and maybe rate your fatigue as you go, that will probably be able to give you a bit more of an idea about how your ebbs and flows go in your life, and that might be able to indicate to you when you should rest and how often, and how long to rest for. I suppose my challenge to you then is to go home today, or stay home, but in the next 3 days, I want you to try and incorporate a rest break that every single day, and see if that makes a difference. And if you're already incorporating rest breaks, like, good on you. That's really good. Is it working for you? Have another think about, can you make some minor adjustments to make those rests a little bit better for you? So having rest breaks has been proven to prevent the onset of severe fatigue. What I was saying before is that you don't want to get to the end of emptying your tank. You want to maintain a little bit of energy. You want to make sure that you recharge your batteries before you feel tired. That will mean that you're going to feel better overall. And enabling more activities will make you a bit more effective and efficient as well. So on the whole, rest pauses tend to increase output rather than decrease it. And ergonomics attributes these effects to the avoidance of excessive fatigue, or to the periodic relief of fatigue symptoms by an interval of relaxation. Seems like a lot of words, but that was through one of the main founders for fatigue research, Kramer and Grandian. So disguised pauses, which is what we were mentioning before about like the crossword, where you're taking a break and having a coffee and having a crossword as well at the same time. It seems a lot more easier, and you can sort of implement it a bit more easier into your routine, but it doesn't provide the sufficient relaxation, because you're doing another activity and you're still performing, so you're not getting that proper downtime. It's best to make your rests efficient by making sure that you're having the full rest break. Okay.
Alexandra, a few people are asking about exactly what you were just saying. What's the best way to make good use of a rest break? And interestingly, I'm not sure why this slide is headed depression and stress. I missed that when I was doing my preparation for today. But here's some actual strategies that can make the most of your rest breaks.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So some of the techniques that even I find useful, and I've sort of put into my day as well, are useful in fatigue management as well. So some people have trouble giving themselves permission to rest, and that might be because it's not possible in the day's schedule anyway. But having a relaxation technique can be seen as an exercise, and therefore you might find it a little bit more readily accepted within yourself, and also, yeah, I guess more so for yourself. So you don't feel like you're being lazy or doing something that's being a bit more present. So there's lots of different relaxation techniques out there, and there's one that's actually been released recently called Smiling Mind. And if you want to download that as an application, it's free. I think it was the government that actually made it available for free recently because of the COVID-19. People are finding that with all the rising stress and anxiety relating to, the lockdowns and the changes in our society recently, that having these at our fingertips for free is quite important in maintaining our health and well-being. And these sorts of relaxation techniques might be meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, although like I mentioned before, it has to be taken with care with the progressive muscle relaxation, because you don't want to try and trigger any spasms that you might also be experiencing with the increased tone. So for example, with the progressive muscle relaxation, you might be focusing on flexing, or like making your hands really tight and then releasing. But if you've got a spasm, you don't want to be making that real flex position with your wrist, because it might aggravate it and make that go on more. But in saying that, there are lots more activities out there, like guided imagery. Sometimes it's just focusing on one part of your body rather than actually actively doing the muscle relaxation. You could just be focusing on different parts of the body and moving your way up. It might be listening to enjoyable music. It might be putting in some nice aromatherapy, lighting some candles, or getting your diffuser going with some of your nice essential oils. These are all sort of suitable ways to encourage, relaxation and maximizing the benefit of a rest break. So relaxations techniques promote stress reduction, eliminate tension, reduce muscle tension, encourage a calm and peaceful state of mind, and can assist with better sleep patterns. These are some of the things that you can use as well to help you get back to sleep if you've woken up to go to the loo, those sorts of things. So examples again, poor use of a rest break might be reading while resting. A good example of a rest break might be putting in your earphones and listening to a relaxation app or podcast, or doing some yoga or some meditation. Meditation is a way of focusing your mind and stilling the endless mental chatter that can rob us of our energy. So it can help you control negative emotions and thoughts and turn them into more positive patterns of thinking and feeling. So, you can do this by finding a quiet place to relax. Choose the times that people don't disturb you, that you can't hear any outside noise. You might need your noise cancelling headphones or things like that. And consider where you decide to relax. Like the bed might not be the most suitable place, because you might not want to fall asleep. And if you do feel like you do fall asleep a lot once you lay down, maybe setting yourself an alarm so you're not making it too long, because having too long of rest breaks can sometimes be impactful on your sleep later on. Yeah, and then meditation sort of like clears your mind. It allows you to focus on your breathing, relaxes your muscle groups, and then you can enjoy that feeling of being relaxed. So the community health centres and some of the community houses often run relaxation courses, and I'm sure there's just so much out there these days on the webinars. And like I mentioned before, I'd encourage you to go and have a look at Headspace or Smiling Mind. And Smiling Mind is free. I think Headspace is now, some aspects is free, and then you have to pay for it after. So I guess the next slide is around diet and lifestyle. And like we mentioned before, it doesn't seem like rocket science, what I'm sort of telling you today, and I hope it's been informative for you, but it's a good reminder that there's things that we can do in our own lifestyle that's that can make a real positive difference. And then, like we mentioned before, it's only might be minor changes that will have a big impact on your the quality of your life. So some simple lifestyle and dietary changes can help me to minimize fatigue. Mild dehydration causes severe fatigue as blood flow to your organs is reduced, slowing down your brain and you with it. So drinking plenty of water each day, unless otherwise instructed by your doctor, is really important. Don't wait until you get thirsty to drink. Have a drink, a couple of bottles of water every day. So sipping from it and get it and have it ready to go. Don't kind of get to the end of the day and feel like you need to make up for those 2 liters that you didn't do throughout the day. Little and often is always best. So the brain is fuel hungry and using up 30% of the body's calories intake. You think about your brain as well, having MS, it's probably taking even more. So making sure that you've got a good breakfast to refill those energy stores can reduce fatigue in the morning hours as well. Include carbohydrates during your breakfast. Try a wholemeal muffin or toast with peanut butter, piece of fruit, and a glass of low-fat milk, for instance. Carbohydrates will be most effective in fighting fatigue if they were low in GI as to opposed to high GI. So you're thinking about none of the white foods, you're thinking about more of the wholemeal browns and the seeded yummy ones, basically. So you want the brown breads over white breads, couscous over white rice. Brown rice is good as well. Going for fruits if you're needing a bit of a sugar intake, because the fructose is better than having like a lolly, which is more high in glucose. Eating proteins and complex carbohydrates in combination is especially good at lunchtime. So that drowsy feeling that we experience mid-afternoon is part of the brain's natural rhythm. And if you're eating things that are sort of high in high GI, you're going to have a big drop as well as that natural decrease. So you want to try and have protein-rich foods which contain amino acids. That promotes the neurotransmitters of serotonin, so it promotes a nice, calm, relaxed feeling, and that fights emotional fatigue. It also promotes dopamine and norepinephrine, which promote alertness, attention, and motivation when you're eating carbohydrates. It's important that you eat iron-rich foods. Iron allows blood to carry oxygen to the body's organs. So if deprived of adequate oxygen, the brain cannot function properly and it results in reduced mental acuity and feelings of fatigue. And a lot of women actually have experienced mild iron deficiencies. So it is important that we try and keep that up. And good ways to boost your iron intake include lean red meat, liver, spinach, and apricots. And I'm sure there's heaps, lots of other things. If you feel like this is a problem area for you, it would be a good idea to try and get a review by a dietitian. So the other thing is that you want to try and avoid, like the little and often phrase kind of goes for a lot of things. You want to try and avoid big meals. Don't take all your calories in 1 or 2 daily meals. Instead, try and eat it over 5 or 6 smaller meals. That allows your stomach to be constantly moving rather than having, you know, all the blood and everything is going to have to go to your tummy to try and digest all that food quite quickly. If you're just doing it in smaller, frequent meals, then it's less energy for the blood to have to go there in such big intakes. So daily calorie intake needs do vary upon depending on like your gender, your age, your body type, and also your activity level. But a general guide for daily intake is approximately 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day. Discuss this ideal calorie intake with your GP and dietitian, I would caution. So also thinking about that, and this is probably a problem in ISO, you might find that you're needing to drink caffeine, or you might be doubling a few more wines than usual, but it is important that we sort of do that cautiously. Although caffeinated beverages can help fight fatigue, caffeine often makes you feel energized. It increases alertness and reaction speed and ability to think clearly for up to 3 hours. So it is quite a good thing to do, and good if you like coffee. That's great. But if you have any more than 5 cups of coffee per day, that can make you feel really irritable and jittery, and actually decreases your task performance. And if you have caffeine too late in the day, it can impact on your sleep. And because it's a diuretic, it's probably going to increase your toilet visits as well. So that's not good either. So little and often is always the way to go. Okay, moving on. I wonder who currently exercises? This is an easy poll question for you.
Thanks, Alexandra. I'll run this poll.
Sorry.
We might have to, that's all right, we might have to cut polls short. We've got a lot of polls, so we won't do them all, but
Yeah.
this is a straightforward one. You might exercise or you might not. So let's have a go at this poll and see what responses we get. And again, thanks everyone for the comments coming in. There's some great questions, particularly a lot of questions around rest breaks. And I'll talk about a couple of programs as we come to the end that you might want to get involved in so that you can get some support around your fatigue management strategies. So
Beautiful.
Closing that off, that's good to see that 62% of the people online today are regularly exercising, but maybe not so good. 38% would class themselves as not currently exercising. So we would probably want to encourage that as well.
Absolutely. So it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, to exercise? It seems like it would sap more energy. But actually, it's been found to reduce your fatigue levels because it improves your mood and it improves your sleep patterns. It can also prevent disease progression as well. So I wonder if you haven't already been linked in, maybe looking at a catch up with your physiotherapist to see what exercises might be suitable for you, and maybe even exercise physiology as well. Then we've got, so I suppose there's just one thing to add around the exercise aspect. You can, if you don't use it, you lose it, basically. So if you're becoming weaker, that actually is going to mean that you're needing more energy to do the day-to-day things. So we want to try and exercise increases energy and it maximizes our strength. And then all those other things that come with that, those health benefits, often have a positive impact that far outweigh the negative aspects of, that initial aerobic exercise. We'll go into the next slide. So group programs are often more successful because you're sort of having that peer support and you can sort of see the person that's trying next to you, makes you feel a little bit more excited and encouraged to try. So I would encourage you to try and think about exercise differently. It's not something that you have to do, it's something that you should enjoy. And if you're not enjoying it, then maybe looking at a different way of doing it. It might be Zumba, it might be going for a nice walk around at the beach or in the anywhere really, like anywhere outdoors. Outdoors is good for you as well. So neuromuscular fatigue can be an issue. So as soon as quality reduces, rest breaks are still essential. So through when you're exercising, thinking about your lassitude fatigue, making sure that it's little and often, this can still assist your fatigue. Trying not to, you want to try and avoid overheating, like we said before about the thermoregulation. You want to try and stay cool, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Keeping drinks, cold drinks nearby so you can keep your core temperature down. Exercising in the pool if you do have one or you're near one. Less than 28 degrees is recommended water temperature. And exercise should include stretching, strengthening, balance work, aerobic fitness and endurance. And these broad categories of exercise address the symptoms commonly seen in MS. The environment should often be physically safe and emotionally supportive. Okay. You can start any exercise program slowly and then gradually build it up. Talking about the heat. So this is often a problem with people with MS, like I've mentioned a couple of times. The thermoregulation dysfunction that sometimes people experience with MS is important to try and counteract. So you want to try and keep your home cool. So close the curtains before the summer sun has had a chance to heat up your rooms. Invest in air conditioning. Speak to your OT. You might be able to see if there's any links with the NDIS through this as well. If you don't have any air conditioning, keep air moving with an oscillating fan, and avoid using the oven and stove to cook meals, and only eat refrigerated and microwavable meals instead. Open your windows and capture the cool breeze, and try to make the most of your environment. Another important thing, like we mentioned before, is try to stay hydrated. Drink plenty of fluids to replace what is lost through perspiration and evaporation, and make sure you get plenty of water throughout the day, no matter what else you drink. Limit caffeine if you can, which can interfere with sleep, like we've mentioned before. And cool your body from the outside. So use a spray bottle to lightly spray water over your body or face. You can also look at cooling vests, neckties, hats, lots of things that are out there these days. And if you're finding that at night time, it's that's when you're unable to manage your temperature, look at cooling pads that you can put on your bed, or potentially you can look at these really cool things called NASA sheets, which you can get through Slumber. Have a look at Slumber online. They're made by astrophysicists, and basically they counteract your temperature based on what's around you. So they're using space technology to keep your body cool or warm depending on what your body is doing. It tries to regulate your temperature for you. Cooling your insides is just as important, so drink cool or iced drinks from the fridge, and consider other heat or thermoregulation webinars as well if you want to have some more information about that. And I definitely encourage you to speak to your OT if you don't already have one, about ideas for thermoregulation. Right, beautiful. So we're getting towards the end. So in summary, MS fatigue is different from normal fatigue. Think about, could the fatigue that you're experiencing be caused by something else? Okay, so is there another infection that's brewing? Just because you have MS doesn't mean that everything's going to be relating back to that as well. So we need to try and optimize every other aspect of our health, as well as what's occurring with us centrally. So what can you change, and what have you found out today that you're going to take on board? What can you change in your life to improve your fatigue? I think, seeking specialist help via MS Connect or through your local health professionals, if you're not already linked with some, is really important. There might be some techniques that you haven't thought of, that they might be able to discover with you. Persist with suggested changes, as it might take some time to reap the benefits, basically. I think at least 3 weeks before you can really build a new routine is generally the principle that I kind of go off. And then some of your take-home strategies, if you guys have found this really interesting, the 4 Ps: plan ahead, prioritize what you're going to do, pace how you're going to do it throughout the week, and then focus on how you might be able to change the way you do things to make it more energy efficient. Look at your sleep and rest breaks. Look at your relaxation techniques. Download those apps, have a go. There's no harm in trying. Look at your diet and lifestyle. What are some changes that you might be able to make in what you're eating and drinking? And are you exercising enough? Do you need to be linked in with your physio and your exercise physiologist? Do you need to go and sign up, with one of your friends or another colleague, or someone to kind of make you accountable for making sure that you go and do that exercise? And look at how you're managing your heat. So are there some other ways, some adaptive equipment that I've mentioned today that you've probably not heard of, or are you using the things that you've already got well? And have another look at that as well. So whatever it is, we hope you've been promoted to make some changes, and that will assist in managing your fatigue. And I do apologise for the mix up at the start, but I'll hand over to Andrea now. It's been a pleasure.
That's no problem at all, Alexandra. It's fabulous information that you've been sharing. I'm conscious that we are running over time, so people feel free to leave if you need to. That's okay, but we'll continue on just to wrap up. I think the volume of information actually shows everyone that there is a lot to learn about managing fatigue. And we absolutely are committed to supporting you with managing this symptom, because we know how much of an impact that it can have. So whether it's expressing your interest in more information. So Facets is a program that we've been running largely by webinar during COVID, but we hope at some stage, maybe next year, to get back to face-to-face programs. But this is an energy effectiveness program, and it actually does a deep dive into changing some of the long-held beliefs or thoughts that go around managing your fatigue. And someone earlier on in the program mentioned the guilt that comes around from resting or from not doing everything that you normally do. And Facets is a great program for connecting and thinking through some of that information. So if you express interest using that link, we can direct you to the best way to get that information. And of course, you can always ask questions through MS Connect. We have some ebooks particularly related to fatigue that you might want to tap into and borrow, and that would be again through MS Connect. I just wanted to highlight the value of peer support. Alexandra mentioned this already, but it is great connecting with other people who are also sharing the journey and can give you some real advice and support. I wanted to also highlight the Employment Support Service. If you are working and living with MS, you might want to tap into the support of the MS Employment Support Service, which is really designed to help keep you working. So that might be around fatigue management strategies, or it might be other symptom management strategies in the workforce. And the OTs that work for that program are fabulous in getting you connected and putting those strategies into practice for you and your situation. And similarly, the NDIS OTs as well. Alexandra is on that team, but it's great for you to connect to the NDIS. So anyone under 65 can connect to the NDIS, and MS can help you make that connection, and then we can support you with your plan and with some of the practical support that can come with that. I've already mentioned podcasts, and if you're over 65, it's My Aged Care where you might get the support. And again, we can help you connect to that if that's problematic. So thank you so much. I'll just go and double check if there were anything burning that I need to go back to, but otherwise I will check through all the questions and comments that were put in through the webinar, and Alexandra and I will follow them up as required. There's some lovely messages of thanks, Alexandra, for all the information. So we really we like hearing that, because it's great to know that the information we've been presenting is practical and helpful. And as Alexandra said, really, we want you to go away from this with a few things to do. It's great to come and listen to the information and to, maybe do the nod of the head and the yes, that applies to me. But we really want you to take that next step of making some changes, and it's not always easy. So again, we're here to help you. So thank you so much for your time today, Alexandra. You've put a lot of effort into the information that you've presented, and we're really appreciative. And I would thank everyone for being online.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. That's really lovely. Great, great to see you all. Great to hear you all here, and I love to hear all the comments and everything, and I hope you did find it helpful. And thank you, Andrea.
No problem at all. Stay on the line if you wouldn't mind, everyone. There'll be a short survey that will pop up after the webinar. If you've got a minute to complete that for us, that's really helpful. But otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you at another webinar in the future. Thank you all again. See you another time. Thanks, Alexandra.